What it do, y'all, and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I'm so excited to kind of give you guys a narrowed down recommendations list when it comes to blushes that I've owned in my collection. These are my top 10 blushes to date that I would highly recommend to you guys. I really appreciate and enjoy all of these, not only for the actual shades that I have in these formulas, but the actual formulas themselves. I really tried to have a wide-ish range on like drugstore to high end, but to be fair, I felt like I could not just keep that in mind. I had to keep in mind what are the blushes that I'm actually reaching for, and outside of that, the colors and the prices and all of that were kind of outside of it. So these are all blushes that I've been on a mission to use up, or I've gotten really into the rhythm of using them so consistently that I had to push them to the back of my drawers. And so I hope that this video is really helpful for you guys, especially in like reflection of me doing that huge swatching video of all of my blushes, both powder and cream, liquid, etc. I really hope that this video is helpful for you guys in case it was just too encompassing and you really wanted a narrowed down collection of blushes that I would recommend to you. So without further ado, let's just dive on in. Alrighty, so I don't have any bonuses because I only have 4 powder blushes and I have, the 6 cream blushes. So let's go ahead and start with 4. Like I said, this is all about the formulation. So some of these may look in different packaging, but they all have the same formulation. So coming out with the first kind of oddity where I only actually have 1. Another thing I want to say before I continue on, I'm sorry, is that these are all formulas that I either actively still want or have wanted another color, but because of the range I never picked one up. And as well as what I said earlier, which is that I've had to stop myself from using all of these formulas time and time again. Alrighty, so first things first is the MAC Extra Dimension blush. This is a beautiful blush. This happens to be in the shade Rosy Cheeks. If you are very familiar with my channel, you will know that this was one of the first blushes that I really became obsessed with. This has a beautiful sheeny glow. It's not shimmery, it's a sheen, and it does have enough pigment that I feel like I'm able to get the best of both worlds, right? I get that pigment, but I get the sheen that I also really enjoy. And this was at a time when I was having a lot of matte bases. So this was really the kind of bringing myself to life that I really got. And I really enjoyed this. Like I said, at the time when I was looking for additional shades, I could not find one that I felt comfortable would actually work on my skin tone. Honestly, I won't lie to you, I haven't looked at MAC's collections thoroughly lately, so I don't know if they've come out with any more Extra Dimension that I love, and I don't actually know if that formula is still available. I will have everything listed and linked down below formulation wise, and I'll list my colors that I have as well. But I still highly recommend that formula. Highly recommend that formula. And yeah, because of that, it had to be on this list. Another one and out, although I am considering now, unfortunately, putting another one on my list, we shall see, is coming from Valentino. So this is one of the Valentino like lip or eye to cheek products, and I have this in the shade 5. Now this is a powder formula, but this is a very unique powder formula. It has a very creamy finish or creamy product in here. It does of course give you that powdery finish, and the shade here is so unique because there is that white or that red border. I find that you can't really see how unique this shade is, but it's like a pinky red, and it's so unique, so interesting. And I don't even know if I want to say pinky red, maybe pinky orangey red. Let's add all of the different colors into the mix. But it's such a beautiful shade. I absolutely loved it when I was testing it out. And like I said, I had to remind myself to put it away. This might somehow, if I can finesse it, end up in this top drawer because this is a really beautiful blush. And out of all of the blushes, this is one that I feel like I've given less attention to because this was at a time where I had so many blushes that I was testing out, but such a fantastic formulation. And like I said, I am actively considering picking up some additional shades. Coming in at formula number 3, I'm not ranking them, I'm just saying it's the third formula I'm talking about, is Haus Labs. This is not a surprise, I'm sure. A lot of people love this formula, and I do know that it was reformulated. These are the two kind of from the original formulation. So this is in Lavender Blondie, such a beautiful shade. And then I have Watermelon Bliss. Once again, a beautiful shade. This formula, as with all of these formulas, are extremely pigmented, blendable, effortless in my opinion. But there's just something about the technology in this powder. It's not a suffocating powder, right? It doesn't really go onto your face and you think it's going to mattify your face completely. No, there's still life to this powder that with my kind of satin, effortless kind of natural bases, it works. It just kind of blends in effortlessly. And although the amount of application I apply, nobody's going to believe that this is like a realistic blush by any means, especially because of the colors that I chose. But they go with the flow of the makeup look that it could look effortless if I had one of their more natural looking colors. And this is a formula, as I've said, I do plan to get the whole collection, not gonna lie. Even though they reformulated, I don't care. Even though it won't look the same because the pans are smaller and the packaging is different. Even though I want all of the shades because it's such a great formula. Great formula. Well, I say all the shades, but all the shades that will work for me, you know? So yeah, that's definitely a formula that I want more of. I know last year they had a 50% off sale specifically, I want to say on these blushes. I'm sure because they were revamping them and they wanted to get all of the old shades out. Had I known, I would have bought them then, but I will wait during, Black Friday time period. I'm sure that as soon as November 1st hits, we'll see our first Black Friday sale. But when I have the funds and I'm willing to spend the money, I will definitely be going ahead and filling out my range with what will work for me from Haus Labs. And then last for powder formulations, I honestly had to end it with Auntie Pat. Pat McGrath, I find, has found a formulation in all of her cheek products that I truly enjoy. I believe I recommended her bronzer in my bronzer video. If I didn't, it was meant to be. And now I'm recommending her blush formula in this video as well. I have quite a numerous amount of blushes, so I'm going to show you them all. This, I have actually 2 shades from her Duo blush range. I don't believe this range is still available. I really enjoyed the 2 shades that I have, of course. So this one is Night Bloom, such a unique and interesting color, whether you use them both separately or together. Absolutely love this shade. I also picked up another shade in Cosmic Coral. I wanted a more neutralish blush. I thought it would be nice, so I picked this up. I really love this formula. This formula is not very creamy. It's quite powdery and it does give you kick up. Compared to the other 3 that I recommended, this one gives you kick up. Haus Labs does too. So does Valentino. But I would say this formula gives you the most kick up between the 3. But the pigmentation is out of this world, and this one actually has the most kind of matte appearance, I would say. Easily it has the most matte appearance, but there's just something about this formula that I still continue to reach for time and time again. I also have one of her older, I think this is the older of the 2 holiday cheek palettes, and this one is in Amber Allure. I have another cheek palette, it's just in a different section, so I forgot to pull it out. I absolutely love this. If you're wondering, this is Paradise Venus and this is Love Struck. Those are 2 permanent singles in her collection, and I was interested in these singles. So when this came out as a face palette, I knew it had to be mine. I knew it had to be mine. The other face palette that I have from her literally is a face palette because there's a bronzer, a blush, and a highlighter. So that's why it's not in my blush drawer. And so I didn't pull it from this for this particular video. But that's another one that I love to reach for. That's a great thing for me to travel with. And once again, I enjoy all the formulas. So it's great. And all of the formulas, what? Work for me. What else can you ask for? What else can you ask for? Which is why I was so disappointed that she did not come out with a face palette this year or a highlighter this year. Those are two that I always try to pick up from her, as long as the colors are different, because they're so good. They're so good. But I'm gonna stay off my high horse. Those are the 4 matte formulas that I highly recommend. I enjoy them all, and hopefully you guys enjoyed the B-roll that I provided for you just now. Of course, throughout my blabbering for each of the formulas. Now let's go ahead and dive into the 6 cream blush formulas, because there's a lot. There's 6. So coming in, I guess, at the 5th formula that I'm going to talk about, which would have been my honorable mention otherwise, is from Huda Beauty. This is her cream blush from the Love Fest range, and this is in Burning Cherry. Now, I'm not sure if this formula is still available, let alone this shade. I know this was limited edition and exclusive to her website, but this is such a fantastic formula. This was one of my first formulas that I knew I could work with cream blushes. So I love the packaging, of course. I love a packaging when it comes to cream blushes in a pan. That way I can use a brush. I can pick up as much as I want. I can remove as much as I want because you can place it on the back of your hand. But this is such a beautiful color. It's like once again, that orangey red type tone. Once it's applied, it does pretty much, in my opinion, dry down. I felt like when I was using it consistently, I didn't necessarily have to powder it down with a powder blush or even with my actual powder. I felt like it really married in with my overall vibes, and pretty much all of these blushes are like that. So that's why they're here. But yeah, I've always wanted more shades, but the other shade I just don't think will work for me, and she hasn't come out with any others. So I hope that as she steps away from eyeshadows, especially those bigger eyeshadow palettes, she comes out with this formula, and it's available at Sephora. Please, I'm telling you guys, this formula is great. It's great. Now, if you don't want to buy from Huda Beauty's website, but you want, I don't want to say a comparable formula, but let's just say comparable formula, then I would tell you to look at the Danessa Myricks Yummy blushes, or Yummy Skin blushes. Now I have 2 different shades, Jubilee and Golden Hour. The difference between this formula and Huda Beauty's formula is that this has that that ingredient that really helps with reducing oil control. So although I think this is definitely a beautiful kind of creamy to powder matte on your face, and it looks skin-like, it does have that capability that can like mattify your skin, whereas Huda Beauty doesn't. So like if you are extremely oily, it will show with the Huda Beauty, whereas it may not show with the Danessa Myricks. That said, I have slowly been picking up additional shades in this formula, and this will probably be my blush formula from Danessa Myricks that I continue to expand. I know she recently came out with like a Bordeaux type color. That is a color I tend to have in quite a few shades or brands formulas, so maybe I will pick one up. I know Danessa Myricks, once again, as all these brands, does quite a nice discount during the holiday season. Don't you worry, I'll be talking about all of these discounts coming up soon. So definitely, I'm keeping an eye out to get some additional shades from that. And I didn't show you guys the other shade in case you were interested. It's Golden Hour. Once again, I know I did swatches, so you guys got the swatches, you see the colors. Continuing on with brands that I have 2 of, I think this is number 7. It's going to be LYS. Once again, another brand. I want the whole bloody range. There's not going to be any ifs, ands, or buts. I just haven't pulled the trigger yet, but I will. Maybe I'll actually see if my code or my link works still, because I don't know. I really don't know. Anyways, LYS. They have these cream sticks. I have 2 shades, one in Unfazed, Why? It's this beautiful burgundy-esque tone. I told you guys I have that shade in like an obscene amount of formulas. And then I have Courageous, which of course is an orangey reddy tone. Of course, these are such beautiful, beautiful products. It is the most kind of shimmery of all of these products. Actually, it's probably comparable to the MAC, but in a cream formula. But the pigment, once again, to shimmer ratio is spectacular. It is so, so good. Of course, if you did not know, LYS is a Black-owned brand along with Danessa Myricks and of course Pat McGrath. So I find that a lot of these Black-owned brands are really good at ensuring that the pigment to shimmer ratio, or whatever the pigment level mainly, is up to par for my skin tone. So I absolutely adore these sticks, and you know I adore these sticks because these are outside of my preferred compact for cream blushes. But regardless, I love these sticks, and I actually, as I said in that previous video, highly recommend these over the compacts like this from LYS. The formula's fine, don't get me wrong, the formula's fine, but these are really the gems that I found the brand finally released, and like I said, I plan to get all of them. And maybe by the time this video is up, I have already purchase all of them, because I'll be doing my links, and while I'm at the website, I might as well buy a thing or two, you know? Keeping it going with, like I said, brands that only have two of, and this is the last brand that I only have two of, and that is only for now. Once again, I just need to sit down and ask the brand for the codes for her second collaboration so that I can buy the shades that I want. But this is the collaboration between Finding Ferdinand and Khaki. So Khaki's YouTube name, I believe, is Khaki Loves Beauty, Khaki Loves Makeup, Khaki Loves Review, something to that effect. But this is her dark range of her first collaboration in the summer. I think it was Summer Abroad. Yeah, it was. So this is in the shade Spritz. Such a beautiful formula, beautiful color. And then the other shade is Macchiatto. Did I say that right? Macchiatto? I don't know. Dyslexia. You guys know the word that I'm trying to say. But regardless, this formula it's a drier formula until you warm it up. But once you have, it blends on the skin beautifully. It applies beautifully. It is pigmented. I absolutely love this formula, and I love the fact that during their collaborations, the two that they have done thus far, she made sure to provide basically the same colors with the same undertones, but just with different saturation levels for the variety of different skin tones that are available in the world. I absolutely love that. I wish more brands did that. I have seen brands be doing that lately here and there, but I find that this collaboration really, to me, showed me that that is possible. And so for that reason, I'm going to demand that brands continue to do that, because come on, I want a light pink blush, but it needs to be pigmented enough that it works on me and has a little bit less white so it don't look ashy. Okay, keeping it going. A brand that I have 3 cream blushes from right now is Patrick Ta. So Patrick Ta, I originally had a 4th cream blush from him, and I decluttered it for a very simple fact. It was not for my skin tone. And I did not realize that until people kept saying his formula is great, his formula is great, I absolutely love it. And they were darker skinned than me. So I'm like, okay, clearly I've done something wrong. I need to reevaluate my observation and my opinion on this formula. So I decided to pick up the shade She's Baked. She's Baked is a certified neutral on my skin tone. There is pink to this brown, so it does show up on my skin tone, but it is a certified neutral. You have that cream on the top that does have the cover. I just flipped it over, and then you have the powder. Patrick Ta advises you that you put the powder down first and then you apply the cream. In doing that, you get a subtle kind of sheen to the skin. I do find that the cream does dry down enough eventually that I don't ever feel like I need to powder it down, and it still gives you a nice kind of sheeny glow to the skin. That said, I will admit that I still do tend to reach for this and use it in the method that I'm used to, which is cream first, then powder. But it also just kind of depends. Sometimes I will strictly just reach for the creams, because I will admit the creams are my favorite part of these duos. If he released products with just the cream as he did with just the powders, I would buy those and honestly probably get rid of these. I prefer his creams. The powders aren't bad, but they don't have very much pigment to them. They're very thin powder, and so they really don't do much to elevate the saturation level of the cream. So there is that. The next shade is She's a Doll. It's the perfect, I would say, bright pink for me. Honestly, I don't need any more pink blushes. I have quite a few, and I really don't wear pink blush very often, but these are just such unique shades. I had to pick her up. And then of course, the last one is the shade that you were expecting, which is She's Wanted, this deep dark burgundy color that is of course everywhere right now this season, and I absolutely love this shade. Absolutely love it. I will say this is the one kind of shade that I've gotten from him where the cream and the powder are significantly different. When you apply it, it doesn't look too bad, but there is a difference between the two. And I will state that this shade duo, this powder has more pigment to me. So take that as you will. Maybe it's because he was prepping it for somebody of even darker skin than me, so I finally got that pigment. But I absolutely adore all three of my duos, highly recommend them. And as I said before, you can use them in a variety of different ways where you can get the best of both worlds. I strongly recommend though, if you like this color, leaning to use the creams over the powders. I find the powders really don't have all that much pigment until I got to the She's Wanted formulation. The last cream blush that I want to talk about, I have 4 different shades, and I would have more if they released more shades. And this is Half Magic. You guys know I'm obsessed with this formulation. It started off very innocently with just one shade, and that is Only Drama. If you know anything about me, this is the shade that got me into purple blushes. This is it. This is the shade. This is the formula. I adore this formula. I don't think you can see it right now, but I have hit pan previously with this formula because it's so creamy in the pan. The cream moves around, so depending on how I apply my brush, the pan is no longer exposed. Such a fantastic formula. Absolutely adore it. I probably do need to really take these things out of these packaging because the packaging is just getting really gross. But I'm just being lazy. What can I say? I'm being lazy. Also, I'm worried that if I take them out, the cream may kind of start to dry out, and this is one of my favorite formulas. Continuing on with another color, I have Magic Brownie. Once again, similar to the Patrick Ta brown, this has enough pink to it that it does show up on my skin tone and it looks beautiful. That should be a video. Brown blushes for brown girls. Let me know down below if you want to see that video. I can definitely get that out because I have a decent amount of brown blushes now that I think about it. But anyways, this is such a beautiful cream blush. Like I said, absolutely love it. And the formula is just the most unique out of all of these. This is the creamiest formula out of all of these, and it still is. It still is. This shade doesn't look like it should work for me, but it does. This is Don't Be a Doll. Absolutely beautiful. I really love this shade. It has just enough color and leaning slightly to the orangey tone that it works on my skin. If it had any more white base to it, I wouldn't be able to use it. And then last but certainly not least is Sexually Frustration. It looks like it's going to be a bright coral, but on my skin tone, it kind of evens out to like a muted pinky tone, which I prefer. Absolutely beautiful. Definitely love it. Highly recommend, like I said, all of these formulas. And you know, there's a formula for everyone, I think, here. Even though I wasn't able to do it by price range like I was able to do for the bronzer, I find that there is a formula for everyone. Whether you like a cream or a powder, whether you want shimmery or matte, whether you want more satiny or something in between. There really is a formula for everybody. If you want to get double your money by getting a duo, I really only had one option, but nonetheless, these are all of my top 10 blushes that I highly recommend for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And with that said, I will see you guys in my next one. Bye guys.